Welcome to Confessions Beyond the Food. I'm your host, Nancy Ridlen. Let's dig in and get inspired. Thank you so much, guys, for coming back to Confessions Beyond the Food. My name is Nancy Ridlen, and I am the host and owner of W3 Sales. So today I am totally geeked out and uber excited to introduce you, if you have not met him, is Thad. And Thad is a corporate trainer, corporate chef. Is that the right title?
Yeah.
Am I getting this right?
The full title is Director of Brand Communications and Executive Chef.
Okay. I can't get all that.
No,
Okay.
It barely fits on my business card.
Yeah, that's a big title.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's kind of a big deal, guys. So he's been on Good Morning America. He's been on the Home Shopping.
Screwed this up already. I've never been on Good Morning America, and I've been on the Shopping Network. And you've been saying that for a long time. I should have corrected you. So I was.
Details.
I know. So if you moving forward.
What's that? I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Thad. I work for the great company Sterno. It's been around, since 1893. And just to set the record straight, again, not the two shows that you mentioned, was on Lifetime. We did a thing for Lifetime a few years back. And it wasn't the Home Shopping Network. It was QVC.
QVC, that's a big deal.
And then some local TV news type spots and things like that. So, but I didn't want to correct you because I thought it sounded a little impressive. But moving forward, you'll know.
I'll tell the truth.
Yeah.
Now I know the truth.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I feel like I don't know you now. So, but that's okay. We'll get to know you.
Well, let me tell you.
Let's start over.
Myself, and then we can get in. I think today is one of the things you wanted to talk about was training, and that's one of the things that I've been doing for a number of years. I started out. I've been in the food business since I was 14. My first job was at a health food restaurant making sandwiches and things like that. And all through college and graduate school and things like that, I have been involved, at least peripherally, in the food service business. I went to the French Culinary Institute.
That's impressive.
There and worked in New York for a number of years and in Chicago, and started working for Sterno in 2007, I think it was. So But in between, there have been different stints that have kind of informed what I'm doing now. Not only, working in restaurants and in clubs and different food service operations, but also did some work in the theater. So there's been some performance in there as well, narrations for different publications and things like that. So all of those things have kind of mixed together to create the thing that I do now. Or one of the things I do now.
Yeah, you do a lot of things. And I have to say, I always enjoy when you come in town. And I feel I've seen him train people on Sterno. And every time there's just one little fact that, comes out that I'm like, oh, I've literally watched you do this like 5 times a year. And I get to train with them. And honestly, before meeting you, I thought I was really good, a pretty good trainer. But I mean, you are incredible. And I just really look up to you because you can take, a subject matter, which Sterno is exciting. I mean, he makes it exciting, right? I mean, it's an essential part of food service. And it's a big deal, but it's not the most sexy topic.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that when people hear the word Sterno, it's not something that makes their heart race, for sure. But the thing about it is that our product line is used just about by everyone at some point in their work that they're doing, whether it's front of the house or the back of the house. So I think when we're talking about training and presentations and things like that, if you can take something that is on its face not very interesting, but make it so that people know that it can make their work better. It can make their customers' experience better if they know certain things. And so I think that's what we try to do in the trainings that we put together for whether they're distributor sales reps or our brokers or whoever we're working with. We try to make it as engaging for them as possible and keep our brand top of mind for them as well.
I think, I mean, and we have distributors specifically request Thad to come in, to speak, and it's a big deal. And I mean, we did a training this morning and we had probably 6 people come up and say, that was the best presentation ever. Because from the moment you open your mouth, like everyone is kind of captivated.
Well,
I mean,
that's very kind,
but it's true.
But so having done this for several years, I think, and having a bit of experience in the performance side of the arts, that there's certain things that you learn that can help folks kind of get beyond the idea of this is just, what am I possibly going to learn about this? And once you get through that, you can really develop a memorable experience for them that will carry over into the work they're doing with their customers as well. And so when I think about, there's all this all the time. You hear about someone will say they're about to do something and they're just going to wing it. This is something that just makes me nuts.
I know
this idea of winging it. Now, if you can appear as if you are very relaxed and doing your thing, well, that's terrific. But it's in the preparation that is really critical to making sure that people know they're on a kind of journey with you and they're going to get to an end point, and to create within that, whether this morning we had an hour-long presentation, it's very important that you know where you're going in that 60 minutes and what has to happen. It's kind of like I don't know if this analogy is going to work, but I'm going to use it anywhere. It's kind of like when a jet takes off on its way from Chicago to San Diego. It will be off course many times because of the weather, because of unruly passengers, because of other air traffic in the area, but they're constantly adjusting, but they know where they're going. And they will get there and they will adjust. And it's the same thing if you know your material, if you know what you want them to walk away with at the end of the thing, then you'll have much better success. The worst presentations are always the one where the presenter has not done much or anything at all because they think they know the material so well. They don't know the audience. They don't know the room. They don't know the tech. That's another thing. And all of these things, every little bump in the road that's not anticipated for can cause problems in preventing a successful presentation.
I mean, I really appreciate your attention to detail. Like, it kind of scares me, if I'm being really honest, like preparing for Thad coming in town, because I want everything to be perfect, because I know you have put a lot of work into each time and it's different every time. And you prepare and practice and we go over what we're going to do.
And even doing that, things don't always go you think they're going to go, but it's a much easier fix than not being prepared.
Right.
So a great example, sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
A great example is the work we did this morning and this group we worked with and have worked with many times. And they're all new people, and all the people that we're working with don't know each other, or there may be a few people, but for the most part, it's a new group. They're kind of nervous around each other. There's a new kind of gig for them. But the idea is that they are nervous enough about, are they impressing the people that they're reporting to? How are they coming off to the people around them? And the last thing you need them is worrying about the presenter, about what's going to happen with this man or this woman or this person during this hour we're together. And are they going to just bore me to sleep? Is that a possibility as well? So the whole idea is to create an environment that is warm, it's welcoming, it's exciting, and it's filled with variety. And none of that can really happen unless the person that's responsible for the presentation knows the room. We talked about this a moment ago. What is the room? What is the setup of the room? Is it set up the way that is best for your presentation? Meaning, is it kind of a stadium setup? Is it we like to work in that kind of U shape so we can walk down the middle of it? Who is the audience? We know who the audience is. And we mentioned just a moment ago, what is it that we want them to walk out the door with at the end of this presentation? And the tech part. Do you have time to make sure that your presentation is ready to go? You've gone through the slides. We'll talk about the slides in a minute if we have time. Your videos are working and things like that. All of those things go into making an effective presentation. They take a bit of work. It takes time and effort and making sure, and we don't live near each other. We communicate, digitally. And even sometimes that doesn't work. We can't get it quite right, but we do everything we can, to make it as seamless as possible. So that's
yeah. And I mean, an hour is, if you get that time slot, I mean, that's great, right? You have a captive audience for an hour, but that's a long time for people to sit and listen to a presentation. I mean, typically, they always recommend presentations are around 15 minutes, and then people kind of check out. So I guess I know you talked a little bit about engaging different, I would say, senses, so, and not just going through a deck, that deck word kills me. So
yeah, the challenge with the deck is that it's become kind of industry standard that the PowerPoint or whatever presentation you're using will be your script, that you will put everything you're going to say on, maybe some bullet points, but here's what we're talking about, and I'm going to read it directly from the screen for you. That's a big problem. People that shuts people down right away.
I go,
you're just, well, why are you even here? Why don't you just send me the deck and I can read it? So if you can build a presentation that is a prompt, meaning we're talking about catering equipment or chafing fuel or the s'mores maker, whatever it is, there's an attractive image, a compelling image, and maybe a title, and ideally that would be it. And then you talk about the product that you're going to share with them. The other thing is, within a presentation, variety is really critical. Besides all the preparation that goes into front of it, during the presentation, variety is so important because that keeps people's attention. Otherwise, they will slowly shut down, especially over the course of an hour. And so the idea, if you can get them on their feet, and I'm not talking about, hey, everybody, let's increase the energy in the room, waving up and down. But the idea is to do a demo or some sort, or bring one of the folks up with you to demo a product together. Not only does that kind of keep everyone kind of on their toes about, oh, I could be the next person that's coming up there, but it creates a sense of activity and energy in the space. And it tends to make the time go a little faster. There's one other thing besides that idea of, preparation, the deck. You do a great job with setting the mood before people come in the room with the music and everything else, and making sure you're greeting folks as they come in. I have found, especially, I've been doing this kind of work for, I think, this kind of presentation for training for Sterno for 15 or 16 years now. And when I first started doing it, I found that, especially because I didn't know anyone in the room, I would be going from city to city, and I didn't know anyone in the room, that I found that, we talked about this earlier, knowing the space that you're in, getting there early, setting up it the way you want, making sure you rehearse the tech, but also being present as your audience is coming in. If it's possible to do that, sometimes it's not, but being present for them as they come and talking to a few of them. And if you have time, maybe learn something about someone that you can incorporate later into the presentation. Because once you find an ally within the audience, it's a friendly face that you know. And if you can share a bit of a story that you two had together before the meeting started, it can be helpful in the presentation.
Well, and I think if you're prepared and you're confident in the material, you have everything organized, you're early, you're ready to go, you have time to be present.
Yeah, right.
You're not like, it's not chaotic. And I know there's some situations like we mentioned earlier that are chaotic, like you can't control all the,
Right.
your environment. But for the most part, I love that, being present in the moment and being catching social cues, catching people's facial expressions. And I think
reading the room.
Yeah, reading the room.
Understand what's
But
happening in
not,
the room.
yeah, and constantly through the information. I know that when sometimes you couldn't be there and I had to do the training, I remember I practiced because I practiced forever, and I read it over and over and over and over again in my head, my outline, and it really helped. And you can't, yeah, for an hour you definitely can't wing it. So I don't even think for 15 minutes you should wing it, because in that 15 minutes you want to leave the best impression you can in the short amount of time, whatever time you have.
And I think that's a great point. There's a couple other things that I think can help people be more successful when they're doing this. There's something that I don't, this is no great secret, but it's not something I talk about, not that anyone cares, but I try to work on, because I do this several times a month, this kind of work for the company. And because it's been so many years that I've been doing it, I find that it's helpful for me to challenge myself. You mentioned earlier in the car ride over here that you were really frustrated with how many you-knows and
Yes.
say when you're speaking. I try to work on one thing, and that could, today you may not have noticed, I tried to have eye contact for at least 3 seconds with everyone in that room at some point, some kind of connection with them. Not until it gets creepy. 3 to 5 seconds is probably a nice length of time. But the idea is that you're making a connection with them. Another thing, it's always one thing. Today it was eye contact for me. I just said, I'm gonna work on eye contact. I made a very conscious effort to connect, and not one after the other, but going around the room. And I did it. I was able to get that with every single person in the room at some point. Making that not apparent is important too.
Not being awkward. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could be.
You need soft eyes.
Soft eyes. Do you practice that in the mirror, like soft eyes? Yeah.
No, I just feel if I just have a little bit of smile, I'll get soft eyes. But the other, it might also be, we mentioned eye contact. It also could be moving. If the space is set up the way we like, which is that kind of view thing, moving and staying put for a full beat, meaning for a whole section before moving to another, being very conscious of that. Another one, especially early on, was trying to eliminate any kind of, we call it vocal flotsam, any kind of ums, ahs, ers, which are not always bad, of course, but too many of them, people start counting them. I mean, I've been in scene presentations where I've counted every time someone said like, or or whatever it is. And when you become aware of that, and really consciously, I did a class one time where anytime vocal flotsam kind of entered into the person's presentation, a bell would be hit. So you became kind of aware of how often that you were doing it. And some people, you could hear ding, 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 ding the whole time.
That happened to me at my first job at Tyson, because I would have to do the employee orientation when people first got hired on. And my boss made me practice and what I was going to be talking about and welcoming these new people. And it was, the word was, and she would tick me every time. And it was so stressful, but it did help. And so, and I'm working on the, I'm highly aware that I need to work on that.
Well, those are things, those are things that are distracting. I'm not saying that, but those are things that people notice. And especially if the content isn't engaging them in some way, that's what they'll go to. It's like being at a really horrible production theater production, for example, and you start counting, the lights in the ceiling or how many people are on stage, you're kind of removed from
or you take
this.
shots every time they do something like
That's
so.
the other thing. And I guess there are a couple of, do you want me to mention a couple more things that I think are
Yeah, we would love that. We want as much as you're willing to share.
I see as many presentations as I do. And there are, the one thing I've really noticed recently is this idea of the Q&A section of a presentation. There's always a Q&A section, and they're important. The problem is that the Q&A section is almost always placed at the very end, and then it's over. From a theatrical performance point of view, there's a better way to do this, and I did this today. You always put the Q&A before the closing. Now, because that way you can end with kind of with the energy up. If it just, there's no more questions, thanks everyone for coming, and off we go. If you can put the Q&A before the kind of wrap up, where you kind of tell the folks what you just told them. You still always start a presentation with, here's what you're going to learn today. Here's the order you're going to have. And then it's always good to end with what I just told you, the kind of content we just covered. That would come at the very end. The other thing, especially for big presentations where you've got a lot of people in the room and people are running around with microphones to get the questions, there are many things worse, but it is one of the more awkward things in life when there are no questions from the audience, especially after a keynote address or something. My suggestion here is that the organizers always should ask the presenter, give me 3 questions that you really want to be asked, and then have someone in the audience ready to ask those questions if necessary. Because oftentimes people are just shy. They don't want to ask a question. So if you can ask the presenter, hey, what are the 1, 2, 3 questions would you like to be asked at the end of your presentation, and then have those in the audience ready to go from a friendly or from, someone who's part of the organizing committee or whoever it is, that can really get the ball rolling.
That's good too, because I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to some of these products, they feel like they should know all these facts about it, and they don't want to, especially, if you're new and you're going through training on something that you may have worked with, fuel your whole life, and you don't want to ask the question and be the one. I know I have felt like that. Just my pride gets the best of me, but that's a really great idea.
Yeah.
So.
And the thing about this isn't, I think everyone knows this. This is all of these techniques and this discipline doesn't, of course, it's a big chafing wheel. It goes to any kind of thing that you're talking about or anything you're trying to get across, whether it's what widgets or cans of soda, whatever it is. Everything has a story. Everything has a story. And if you can find a way to tell that story in a compelling way, people remember.
Yes.
People will keep, in this case, the brand top of mind, and they'll feel good about selling it, and they'll communicate that to their customers down the line.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main thing, because as salespeople that sell 1 million different things, if you have to know a lot about a little or a little about a lot, the big thing is, when you do these presentations to the people that need to know a little about a lot, they just need to know who to go to.
Right.
And you want to be that person that they call. So I'm curious, what was the most cringy presentation, in the very beginning, or did you have a presentation at the beginning?
Well, I think I would, the largest challenge that I have now is with the tech part of things, especially going into a new space that you don't know the IT person. They may not have one. There's all of these variables that go around it, and that is the part that always consistently is a problem. Not every single time, but if there's a problem that I could say, I wish that would better, is a technical thing. It could be something, the sound doesn't work, or the video is glitchy, or it works perfectly in rehearsal, and there should always be a rehearsal. It works perfectly in rehearsal, but when it comes time, when everyone's in the room, it goes south.
Always
for whatever reason. So that's the thing I get most anxious about when I think
Mm-hmm.
about presentations. The cringiest moments are the moments early on. I remember I must not have been breathing right. And I went in the theater, they call it going up, where you just lose your lines and you don't
Mm-hmm.
know where you are. And I remember one time, it only happened once. And there have been smaller incidents, but this was where I went completely up and had to stop and get to my notes and kind of figure out where I was. And it was just such an awkward, presentation
Mm-hmm.
from there. And then occasionally, not often, but occasionally, people will say things to you from the audience that can completely throw your rhythm off,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if you don't care about really what you're doing, then it's not a big deal. But if you've put a lot into this thing, you want it
Mm-hmm.
to go well, and you want to come here
Yes.
relaxed, and then occasionally, but you have to be ready for that. I mean, the someone saying, it's not like a comedy club, but someone saying something that kind of throws you. If you're not kind of ready for that, then that can kind of derail you for the rest of the rest of the time. So,
That's yeah.
but that was the cringiest. It's all, and you have you ever had that experience where you have like an outer body thing where you're so aware of what's happening in your body, and you can't, your hearing is clouded, but it's an anxiety kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to get out of that is very difficult, once you're in it. It's not like you can stop. You got all these people looking at you. You have to breathe through it. But the most important thing is hopefully not getting to the point where that's happening.
Yeah. And most of the people probably don't even know that you are in that stage, because most of the people don't know the detail that you know.
Right.
And so that, not getting in your head about that.
Yeah.
So what about virtual training? Because, the past couple of years, obviously tech is, that can lose everybody. I know I've sat on some Teams, Zoom, all the things, and everyone's like, I can't hear, turn your speaker off. Like,
put yourself on mute.
Yeah. So what are like presenting virtually, like in the past, like what are your biggest recommendations and tips on that?
That's a very thoughtful question. I thought about this a lot, especially during the pandemic, because so much of what I do is being in front of people. Excuse me. And I have found that if I can replicate what we do in front of an audience, whether they're distributors or brokers or buying groups or whatever they are, and sometimes they're very large groups, sometimes they're groups as small as 5 or 6. It's trying to recreate that experience virtually. And that always means not sitting down. And that always means being on your feet. So I use an iPad, and I never run the meeting. That's the other thing. So it's very important for me to have a partner that I'm working with that is managing whether it's the technical part of it. And then I make sure that I have a setup where I'm on my feet, that I'm from the waist up, and that I can move it with depth back to get my products or whatever, and then demonstrate for them. That creates, at least I think it does, a kind of dynamism that helps keep the audience's attention. But if you're having to deal with fielding the questions that are coming in or switching all these different things that are necessary for these meetings, it can't work. So it requires 2 people, because I'm standing, and
right
around the room.
You do incredible virtual training, and it's very engaging.
Oh, that's
I appreciated it, during that time, because I knew the technical side. I felt bad for whoever was doing tech with, like that person better get it right, because
well, I would know, because it's hard to see with the audience.
But they did a great job. So always do a great job.
But that's the thing. It's always about connection. The idea. And so you're looking into a camera, you're looking into a camera or the phone up there. You have to connect with that.
Right.
You must have the ability to make a connection with the person on the other side that you can't see, because we always have them turn the cameras off. So all I'm seeing is my little box and then the camera. But you must be speaking to one person. And that's the whole exercise when I talked about going around and making sure you're connecting for 3 to 5 seconds. That's what that is. That makes that person feel, and hopefully the presenter is genuinely trying to connect with them. And that's powerful. That's meaningful, to people. It makes them feel like they are present in the room at that moment. I know when I see, my problem is that when I'm in a group like today where there was 30, 40 people in the room, my problem is I tend to be the person that, wants to make sure the presenter knows that someone is paying attention, is engaged, and making sure they see that. That's my problem. It's reaching the people that have kind of shut down, after 3 days.
Or they start checking their phones, I've got a customer issue that's huge, and
that's right. So that's another thing that I've started doing. I didn't do it today, but I've started doing is asking folks, even if they want to take notes on their phone, I say, let's begin by putting our phones away.
I love that.
Take your notes. If you need to take a call for work, by all means do it, but please step out.
Because it's very distracting.
It's very distracting for everyone, and it's kind of viral in the room. One person starts doing it, then the next person.
And as a presenter, you're like, oh crap, have I lost?
I understand. I did an audience too, and you've got things to do, but I find that if you can kind of set those rules in front, the problem is sometimes people come in late and then they haven't heard you say that, and they're already on the phone. They've already been on the phone anyway.
Dealing with an emergency. Yeah. Well, so I have to ask, what is your confession when it comes to presenting? Do you have any confessions?
It still makes me very nervous. Do you know?
Really?
Yeah. It's the kind of thing where I have had people say, well, this must be so easy for you. The ease comes in the preparation point of it. The knowing where that analogy we used earlier, that is probably overused, but the idea of where the plane is going, and there's going to be a lot of things that happen along the way, but you are ready for them, and you're going to land the plane, and that you know what you want those folks walking away with at the end of your 30 minutes or hour or whatever it is. What is it the one thing that you want them to know when they walk out of the room? But even with all of that, with that level of preparation and knowing the audience and knowing the room and knowing the tech and all the things that go into creating something like this, it's not debilitating. It's not as if I feel like I can't do this or I don't want to be there, but I still get that sense of something is about to happen. And I kind of wish I didn't have to do this, but at the same time, I'm so glad that I can do that. And I think when that goes away, when that feeling stops happening, then I really got to rethink what I'm doing, because when you have a level of tension, it lifts you. It gives you that sense of energy and purpose and wanting to be, and the audience knows that. I don't know, when you present, you can feel a room. You can definitely feel a room, and you can definitely feel when a room is not with you.
Yeah,
and they don't want you to be standing there and doing this. And the other thing about this is, everything we've talked about here today it applies whether you're talking to a single person, but you have to adjust it, of course, or whether it's a room, because it goes back to that 3 to 5 seconds. You're communicating to one person. There may be a lot of people in the room, but the idea is each person, if you are very successful, should feel that message was just for them on that day. And
love that.
You're not always successful, for sure, but if you can work towards that goal, that's, I think, helpful.
That they all walk away inspired. Well, and so for sure. I mean, they do. I know I do each time. And I just appreciate and look up to you in so many ways. And your passion and attention to detail, and that you just really care. And I think that is one of the coolest confessions. I know I get really nervous, and I probably overthink things, but then you don't, because you want to give, I want to give Sterno the best representation, best presentation, best, imagery, feeling, all the feels. I want to engage all the feels and have them walk away and be like, wow, that was cool. I learned something today.
Good.
So thank you so much for coming. And
of course,
I'm just really excited to have Thad on this podcast. I think I told you about it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I said, you're doing this. And he's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I was like, it's okay. We got this. But no,
we winged it.
We did.
We didn't wing it. We talked a lot.
Yeah, we talked a lot about it. So, but no, thank you so much. He came in. I mean, he's going home to Chicago. He took a later flight just to do this. So just thank you. And I look forward to having you on again.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. For more inspiration, follow our social media at W3 Sales. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All the things. We would love to connect with you.